Okay, I'll start recording now. Let's go. So I was saying with the very little knowledge that we gathered to which was of to move, rotate, scale, duplicate, pan, pan across the screen, rotate the view, and rotate and move objects. We made this simple composition. Now we have it as a base. Then we can start drawing on top of it, like I sort of tried to do in the last session. Similarly, so I'll just try to draw a panel. So, so we have to see how we can use it basically. Or let's say this is an industrial building. This is not a vehicle. So if this was an industrial building and I already have a perspective grid here established with Blender, so maybe I can use my knowledge of architecture if I have any. Make it like this, add a bunch of windows here. Maybe some windows are longer than the others, and it takes a turn like this. Then I can add like a roofing here, like a parapet of the thing. Some things like this. Maybe some cell phone tower like thing happening here. Maybe I chamfer this edge, and I can have like industrial windows happening. Shit. This is where your knowledge of perspective sort of helps you. Yeah. So perspective is looking a bit off in my case. But anyway, so these are like windows that are industrial. Now here I should take care of the line art, line thickness, or not do it at all here. Then maybe I can show some people entering, or like some car entering, and there's like some people, there's some barricade kind of a situation. So with whatever you already know, you can start doing some form of storytelling. If you have a deeper concept, you just think of it in 5-10 minutes, 20 minutes, look at some references, and it helps you. Like you can already do something. Then maybe there's some pipes coming out of it. Maybe this is in a desert, so the the lines are not exactly perfect, and maybe there's some flag, there's some like checkpoint here. So our aim is to do storytelling through Blender, not exactly master 3D modeling. Our aim is to use the 3D model as a base to tell stories, to make designs, basically, to make concepts. So that is what we should essentially focus on. So this was, I'll not go deeper into it for the time being. Let's look at what other objects do we have apart from the cube. 1 second, Blender will start up. Usually takes some time. Okay. To add objects, what we press is Shift plus A. A means add. So if I press Shift plus A, a menu pops up. If I go into mesh, I have a plane, cube, circle, UV sphere, cylinder, cone. So this object, this object, this object. 1 second. And the cone. These four together are called the primitive shapes. Primitive forms, or shape is this, but this, since this is a 3D form, it's, or just primitives, and using a combination of all these, we can make any object in the world that is known to man. So what is a pencil? It is just an oblong cylinder with a cone on top, right? uh, so let me turn on the shortcut thingy. Okay, so yeah, this is what a pencil is. And what is a building? It is just, some buildings are a bunch of cubes, oblong, uh, or some buildings are, let's look at this building to finish building. If you look at this particular building, we can already break down the shape of it. uh, yeah, this is like a, it's a cuboid with a cylindrical top, uh, and another cuboid whose edges are chamfered. The proportions will vary, but the primitive shape lineup shape arrangement is the same. And I can go in edit mode, and I press Alt Z to turn on X-ray mode, Alt plus Z to turn on and off X-ray mode. I can select these two edges, two vertices, and move them in the X direction. And here there's like a, this is being scooped out to form this. So this is how we can basically form any object using primitives. Let me rough the board, erase the board. Yeah, so when we learn 3D modeling, we should basically learn how our objects form. So let's look at any other object. Objects. Any of these is basically all the primitives arranged in various ways. So, so some forms look a bit more complex, but they are just primitives manipulated even further. This is essentially an oblong, like a cuboid, with the edges like this. Something like this, and the rest is just making the thing more and more complex. So yeah, we try to understand objects in the form of primitives. Now once we know this, let's look at what the hell is this gizmo thingy here. This is called the scene collection. So whatever you put in the scene shows up here. And let's say I'm working on this, and I need to select, I want to work on this. I can either click it directly here, or I can click it here. So whatever you add, even like a light source, it shows up on this scene collection. Now let's look at um, let's look at this thing. This thing is called a camera, and we can also move the camera. How we can move this cube? Similarly, we can move this camera anywhere, and it will basically change the view. we use this camera to render images when we have to take a shot. So imagine what this whole thing is like, the studio setup. So let's say you've gone to get your passport size photo clicked. So you go to the setup. There's like a curtain. There are some lights. There's like an umbrella light, and there's the tripod camera. There's a stool, and you sit here, and there's the guy taking the photograph. Same thing is happening here. So whatever we put in the object are like objects in. So this tool is like this object, and you can populate it with anything. So that comes in the set. Light sources are, we have light sources here. So these are our light sources, and this camera is this thing basically. These, and it's the same thing. So when we go here, this is the final shot. So you do all the makeup, you do all the lighting, set everything up, and this is the camera. You can also rotate it in X, Y, and Z direction and move it basically. I'll need to start a new Blender file. Blender again ran into some problem. So basically it is like a studio set, film set. Film set. Blender is like a simulation of the film set basically. So this is basically Blender. So in Blender you are the lighting artist, you are the director, the director of photography, sound, music, everything is in your hands when you're using Blender. That's how you should perceive it. So this right here, let's just do a comparison. I'm trying to tell you more conceptual aspect of Blender because you can learn it once you understand what it is about. Once you understand this conceptual makeup of Blender, learning it will be so easy for you. So this here is the director sitting in the chair. And this here is the light source, which is this. And these are the objects in the scene. In this case, it happens to be a human trying to mimic an ape. But for us, it is this cube. So, yeah. So let's say we have a shot now. Let's say I go in camera view. I take the camera a bit far from me. Now, there are these three things. This is called material preview mode. Now this here is called rendered display render preview. So if I move this light source, this thing changes. This is how our final shot will look like, right, basically. That's why it's called a preview of the render. So if I go in my camera view, I'm trying to take a photograph. And to click the photograph, so what this guy will do is he'll just click a button on this thing and it will take a photo. For us to take a photo, we have to click this thing called render, which is above on the top right, top left. If I press render image, I click the photograph, and this is how the photograph looks. So now what we know is move objects, rotate, scale, duplicate, and we know how to add objects with Shift A, add, and we know how Blender works, so we know the conceptual understanding. Set to conceptual understanding of Blender, and we know how to take a photograph with Blender, which is by pressing render button, which is at the top left. So these are the things that we know now, and I believe this is a lot to soak in already for one lecture. So this is the end of the lecture for today. Thank you.